Everything started with a video sent by the senior. In the footage, a dark figure was crouching on the ground. At first, we thought it was some horror game promo, but then we saw the familiar guitar in the lower right corner of the video. We realized it was the senior's rented apartment. After that video, the senior's account was never online again, and the last message he sent was just 4 simple words, Kwai Tuan Wu, 3 a.m. My roommates and I were staying up late flying, but at the height of the team fight, a message popped up in the bottom right corner of the screen. It was a video call from a senior. Let's check it out and finish this round first. However, the video call ended along with the voice. Immediately after, the senior sent another video. The boss was stunned for a moment, took off his headphones. Something's off. I glanced at the video thumbnail. The head was all black. You can vaguely see something. The senior usually doesn't like to post stuff like this. He's a computer engineering graduate student who spends his days coding or gaming. Pause for a moment, we stop what we're doing, and the boss opens the video. The footage shook violently, as if a phone was recording in a panic. The background was very dark. Only the light of the TV was visible. A figure pounced on another person, and the sounds of biting came through the speakers, mixed with a kind of sticky chewing noise. Damn, what kind of crazy game is this? The second brother put down the chips and drew with real strokes. The fourth brother pushed his eyes, the illusory mirror, but I stared at the screen. A chill crept through my heart. The video was shaking, but for a moment, I saw clearly what was on the wall. It was a banner, the banner of our school's information security competition. This was the senior's home. The eldest brother turned back and looked stitch by stitch. That's right, the banner on the wall, the style of the blanket on the sofa, and that familiar guitar in the corner. This is the senior's living room. Last month, we even went to Zhangguofan. In the last few seconds of the video, the camera flips and the senior's face appears on screen. Then the screen goes black. The dorm is so quiet you can hear each other's breathing. Don't panic. Maybe it's a prank, but the chips in your hand have already been crushed. I immediately messaged the senior. I couldn't get through to the phone, but couldn't get through. I checked his game status. The last time he was online was 10 minutes ago, just when I posted the video. Looking at the group, the senior also posted the video in our alumni group. But it was quickly recalled, leaving only the last message. Hurry up and stockpile supplies. No explanation, no follow-up. What the hell is going on? The second child stood up and wandered alone in the cramped dormitory. I opened my browser and started searching for related news. Nothing happened. Social media was calm as usual. Everyone was still discussing final exams and summer plans, but Lao Si noticed something was off. Look at this, he picked out a tech forum with a few scattered posts. Does anyone know what happened to room A? My cousin went missing last night. A student at University B is missing. The school blocked the message. These posts didn't last long. Soon they'll be gone 404. The network cleanup mechanism has been activated. The fourth brother frowned. Someone is deleting specific information. The boss and I are in the same view. If we were still hoping before, now we can't fool ourselves anymore. Should we stock up on something? What should we stockpile up? The second brother eats the fermented yeast. Do you really believe it? What if the senior made a horror short film? But his laughter was barely audible. The boss was silent for a moment. Why did the senior only send it to the 4 of us? Everyone looked at each other. We have a good relationship with the senior, but not enough to send it separately unless he thinks only we believe it. Lao Si shared my thoughts because we're all gaming geeks. After watching countless zombie movies and playing countless survival games, if the apocalypse really comes, we might be the fastest to react. Whether real or not, just prepare first. What are you getting ready? The second child is still out of condition with supplies. I opened the memo. Food, water, medicine, tools, and other places. I need a safe place. The observatory. The school's observatory is on the top floor of the teaching building. Usually, hardly anyone goes. The key is with the astronomy club president, who just came home last week. The spare key is at the gatekeeper. But old Zhang often dozes off at night and splits up. Fang Su and Lao Er go to the convenience store to buy food. The fourth brother is responsible for checking the information. If anything else is unusual, I'll go get the keys. Wait, I called them back. If this is true, we believe it. What if it's a misunderstanding? The boss is watching me. His gaze was serious, preferring to have it in his heart. If it was fake, at worst he would waste some money. He didn't finish speaking, but we all understood. If it was real, this might be our only chance to survive. At 3:52 a.m., more than 2 hours before dawn, the dormitory building was still asleep. No one knew that the 4 gaming otakus were preparing for the possible apocalypse. 15 minutes later, they gathered at the observatory. Only the hard copper fire with a guaranteed aura. Remember, don't disturb others. We nodded. No one spoke, but everyone silently prayed in their hearts, hoping this really was just a prank. Let's hope everything will be normal after dawn. But that video still looped in my mind, a broken guitar, and the fear in the senior's eyes. I pushed open the dorm door, the hallway lights flickered like unstable voltage, and there was a strange smell in the air. I can't quite put into words. Maybe someone's takeout was ruined. Maybe so. At 3:30 a.m., when the entire dormitory building was sound asleep, we started our first shopping plan. At 4:03 a.m., the rolling shutter of the South Gate convenience store was half open. The owner was dozing off at the checkout counter. The fluorescent lamp in the shop flickered from afar. "Boss?" I nudged him, and he suddenly woke up, drooling a silver thread at the corner of his mouth. "What to buy? Chocolate, beef jerky, compressed biscuits, anything that can hold alcohol for late at night. You guys are going camping, military training zipper." The guide gave a last-minute notice. "There's some nonsense here, but the boss isn't in the mood to care." He yawned and pointed to the shelves, saying, "Take it yourself. Scan the code to pay." I pushed the shopping cart, moving quickly between the shelves. Chocolate should be high in cocoa. For anti-hunger beef jerky, choose vacuum packaging. Shelf life is 70%. Although compressed biscuits taste bad, one piece can be worth a meal. Salt is very important. He's right. Salt is not only a seasoning but also disinfects and preservatives. I grabbed 10 bags of edible salt and threw them into the car. The lighter reminded me of the game setting. Fire is the key to survival. 3 boxes of lighters, 5 flashlights, and batteries. Like an obsessive patient, I rummaged through the bottom shelves. There were some stocks the boss had forgotten, promotional items from a few months ago with expiration dates over a year. You bought so much, and the boss finally came to his senses. Looking suspiciously at the shopping cart, for classes zipping up together. I casually made up a line, "We're in charge of purchasing." Mobile QR code scan, 3,247 yuan. That's my living expenses for 2 months. But now is not the time to worry about money. Wait, the boss suddenly called out to us. "Is something going on lately? Someone came yesterday to buy a bunch of things. I was worried and didn't know them. Business from out of town, bought a lot of canned food, said to be traveling far. One of the things with the longest shelf life of canned food. Looks like we're not the only ones who received the warning. Boss, do you have a first aid kit here?" In the warehouse at the back, the boss got up and led the way. "What do you want that for?" "To prevent heat stroke. The smell in the warehouse is even stronger. That strange smell is like something rotting." The boss frowned. "Damn rat. Where did it die again?" The first aid box was covered in dust. I checked. Basic medicines included Band-Aids, Fushan cloth, and a few boxes of expired cold medicine. Half a year past expiration isn't a big problem. "I'll take this too." I pointed to the sapper product in the corner. "That's for self-defense. The boss isn't interested, so I'll just quote 200. Deal." Pushing the cart back, the second brother whispered, "Do you really believe me?" "You don't." He was silent for a moment. The dorm next door was still playing games, and outside people were playing skewers. If something really happened, it couldn't be this calm. "Beijing is 20 kilometers away," I reminded him. "It takes time for news to spread, but there's nothing online, so that's why it's scary." We brought the items to the observatory, and the boss was already there, waving a bunch of keys in his hand. "Did you plug something in?" I asked Lao Si, and he shook his head. The social media in Beijing district hasn't updated since 2 a.m. The last post is that someone complained about a power outage, which is normal. It's also very unusual. The cafeteria warehouse owner checked the time and realized the door lock had been fixed by the manager last time. I know how to open it. The back door of the cafeteria is in a small alley, usually filled with dry water buckets. The smell is strong, but tonight it's especially quiet. No eye rolls or trash noise. The lock is old. I used a Swiss Army knife, flipped it a couple of times, and it opened. The warehouse is piled high with rice, flour, and seasonings, plus a big freezer, making it impossible to move rice. The eldest analyzed. The tire weight is too heavy, and the goal is dehydrated vegetables. The fourth pointed to the corner cafeteria for making soup, with a shelf life of 2 years. Good idea. We packed 10 bags of dehydrated vegetables and soy sauce and vinegar. Cooking oil. Pour the oil into a cleaned drink bottle. There was quite a bit of frozen meat in the freezer. I hesitated for a moment, but still peeled a few pieces, peeled off a few more layers with plastic wrap, and buried them in the sandy soil on the rooftop. Can be stored for a while. The fourth brother suddenly froze. He pointed behind the eldest brother and saw what was there. We turned back and found something moving in the shadows deep inside the warehouse. It was slow and stiff like a mouse. The fourth brother breathed a sigh of relief. It was a big mouse. Sure enough, a fat and thin rat crawled out from the shadows, but its movements were strange. After just 2 steps, it convulsed, foamed at the mouth and was poisoned. The second child guessed that the mouse suddenly accelerated and charged straight at us. Eyes bleeding, teeth baring. I instinctively raised the entrenching shovel and smashed it down. Smack, the mouse was flattened. Black blood splattered all over the ground. The smell overwhelming. Is this mouse crazy? Could be rabies. I said this, but in my heart I was thinking of another possibility. If even the rats are infected, move quickly. It's almost dawn. Let's speed up, use the pressure cooker, stainless steel plates, and some sealed bags. Passing by the fire cabinet, the second brother pried open the door and carried away a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher, which could be used as a weapon. The chemistry lab on the 3rd floor of the lab building had locked doors, but the windows were closed. The 4 youngest brothers crawled in through the window. Several bottles of alcohol dripped out. Medical standard is 75 degrees. Be careful. I took the alcohol. This stuff is flammable. The school nurse on duty on the 1st floor isn't there. Maybe she went to the bathroom. We quickly cleaned the medicine cabinet. Antipyretics, anti-inflammatory drugs, gauze, and patches are all basic medicines, but the key is that they might save lives. When asked, Lao Si reminds us that masks are also masks. If masks really spread the virus, masks are the first line of defense. We scavenged all the masks in the medical room, 5 big boxes. Back at the observatory, the east was already getting light. We were exhausted like dogs, so we pressed ourselves to the ground to breathe. What are you coming on? The eldest asked about water. I said a lot of water. The dorm has a water heater. The second said it's not enough. The 4th brother shook his head. If the water and electricity stop, the water heater is just for show. Mineral water. I thought about it. There's still some wheat cloth. Let's go carry a few more boxes. I'll go. Second brother volunteers, wait. The eldest called out to him. The 2 of them went and brought some gear. The gear is just engineering equipment and dismantled curtain rods, though simple. But life is nothing. Lao Air and I came to Maibu again. The boss is already awake and looking at his phone. You didn't come, so buy some water. I said I'd move it myself, but he was distracted. Eyes fixed on the screen. I glanced at the local news. The headline was normal. Temporary power outage notice in Beiqing district. But the comment section is already closed. Boss, can I borrow a cart? Behind us, we pushed the stone box of mineral water and headed back. On the way, I met students who got up early for a run. Everything seemed perfectly normal, so normal. Fang Su, the second brother, suddenly said, "What if it's fake? Then let's treat it as a military training rehearsal." I'm serious. He stopped. Maybe we overreacted? I stopped too, watching the sky gradually brighten. Second brother, do you remember what kind of person Senior is? Pretty reliable. Would someone like that joke about something like this? He fell silent and returned to the observatory. The 4th brother was modifying the exhaust fan and a simple ventilation filtration system to prevent the virus from spreading through the air. Where did you learn this? I'm surprised. By Jean, he pushed up his glasses. Doomsday Survival Guide, 3 million views. The boss is organizing supplies, sorting them out. A pile of food, a pile of tools, medicine set aside. Looking at these things, it suddenly feels unreal. The 4th brother still hasn't come back. The boss checks his phone. Where did he go? The 4th brother, we all call him the 4th. Last night we agreed to play all night together. But he left at midnight, saying he was going to the internet cafe to download some data. Turned off the phone. Oh no. If the 4th brother is really out, I'll go find him. I stand up. No, the boss grabbed me. It's too dangerous. Let's go check the internet cafe. I persisted until dawn. What could possibly happen? In the end, the boss compromised and put on this military coat I just got on my way. Even though it's summer, thick clothes help prevent skin contact. I thought it was a bit much, but I still wore it. 10 minutes. The boss said seriously. If we don't come back in 10 minutes, we'll leave. Got it. I pushed open the observatory's door. The hallway was very quiet. Only my own footsteps. The elevator was still running. Everything seemed normal. But I know that before storms, things are always especially quiet, and we might be the first to sense the wind direction. At 6:23 in the morning, the lights in the internet cafe outside the school were still on, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and instant noodles. I pushed open the door, and the familiar sound of keyboards hit me. I walked through rows of computers. Most of them were gaming. The screen light cast on their faces, their expressions numb, like another world. Sure enough, Lao Si was on machine 23. He was wearing headphones, his eyes bloodshot. I put them on. Fang Su, why are you here? He asked me. I lowered my voice. Something's wrong. Go back quickly. Wait. He switched back to the screen and quickly finished downloading. I leaned in to check. It was a bunch of messy medical manuals, wilderness survival guide, simple weapon crafting, and 3G network cracking tutorials. Lao Si noticed my gaze. If the 4G base station crashes, the 3G network might still work. No wonder he's a tech geek. He thought further than we did. He opened another folder with all domestic and foreign information about the Northern District, Twitter, Facebook, and even codes. He found something and his expression grew serious. Since 11 a.m. last night, all information in the city has been blocked, but he clicked on a screenshot. It was a message on Twitter posted at 1 a.m. Run, they're all crazy. The accompanying image is very blurry, seemingly taken while running. Also, this one. Another screenshot from an anonymous forum post. An unknown disease outbreak at a hospital in Beiqing district. Patients aggressively aggressive. Family members are responsible for their own losses. I felt a chill down my back. Why didn't mainstream media report on it? What do you think? Lao Si smiled wryly. Panic spreads faster than viruses. The download progress bar finally reached 100%. Lao Si quickly unstuck the USB drive. Added a new wireless network card, industrial grade with a 2-kilometer signal coverage. You've prepared it for a long time. I'm also in the senior hometown group. He pushed his eyes, saw his message, and I knew something was wrong. We quickly left the internet cafe. Outside, it was already broad daylight. The breakfast stall was opening, the aroma filling the air. Everything seemed so normal. Fong Su suddenly grabbed me and said, "Look over there, in front of the school gate." Several police cars were parked there, and a man in uniform was talking to the security guard, his expression serious. He went through the side door, and I pulled him around the way. The side gate usually doesn't open, but there's a gap in the fence, the students all know it. Just as we crawled through, we heard an announcement behind us. "Students, please note, due to equipment maintenance, the school will immediately cut off power from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. today. Please be prepared." Another power outage. We jogged all the way back to the observatory. The boss saw us and clearly breathed a sigh of relief. "Finally back. How's it outside?" "Not looking good." I told them what I saw, but the second brother was still stubborn. "It's just a power outage." Power outages are frequent in summer. When power outages in summer, they don't film so many episodes. People in uniform. Lao Si corrected his wording. Lao Si checked his phone. "It's 7:40, 20 minutes left." "What 20 minutes?" "Power outage," he stood up. "If there really is a power outage, we have to hurry." For the next 20 minutes, like a boost of adrenaline, we charged every device we could charge and filled every container that could hold water. While checking again, Woozi and Lao Si suddenly said, "It'll be cold tonight." "Where did the blanket come from?" Lao Air slapped his forehead. "We have sports equipment." He and Lauda went to move gym mats. Lao Si and I held back, continuing to organize supplies. The observatory isn't big, but it's big enough for the four of us to move around. We covered the door with newspaper, leaving only a gap to observe outside. At 7:55, the boss and the others returned carrying gym mats, bringing plenty of extra things. Jump rope can be used as a rope, dumbbell weapons, and a few soccer balls. Not sure what they are for. In the last 5 minutes, I stared at my phone. We sat on the ground, forming a circle. No one spoke. The atmosphere was as oppressive as the sea before a storm. If it really is the apocalypse, what do you regret most? Never dated. The fourth brother was the first to answer. A game I haven't cleared. I said, "I didn't go home." The second brother laughed. "My biggest regret is, we hadn't finished eating the instant noodles last night." We all laughed. The laughter was brief but dispelled some fear. At exactly 8 o'clock, the lights went out. Not only the observatory, but the entire teaching building was plunged into darkness. Complaints from students came from outside the window. Some people are cursing the school as a mess, but we know this isn't an ordinary power outage. Radio Lao Si turned on the prepared radio and switched to the emergency channel. Amid the rustling electricity, the broadcast faintly came through. "Please keep your video calm and cooperate with the relevant departments." The official response to the score is standard official language. But the more this is the case, the more serious the situation becomes. I walked to the window and carefully lifted a corner of the newspaper. Students downstairs began to gather, whispering among themselves. Someone was holding a phone and making a call, their expression turning from confusion to panic. The network was still usable. The boss checked the phone, but it was very laggy. The base station was overloaded. The fourth brother analyzed. Everyone was searching for information online. I checked social media. The screen was very laggy, but I still saw some content, all asking about the power outage. No more information. Suddenly, a scream slid through the sky, far away but very clear. It was like a sound made only by extreme fear. We looked at each other, and another cry, this time even more shocking. At 6:03 in the morning, a heart-wrenching scream shattered the silence of dawn. I suddenly opened my eyes, my heart pounding wildly. In the astronomy observation classroom, everyone else woke up in shock. The eldest had been holding onto it too, his face pale. His voice was very soft, and a second scream rang out. This time it was closer, seemingly coming from the dormitory building, followed by chaotic footsteps, the sound of things scattering, and some kind of beast-like roar. We quickly got up and got into position. The second child checks the doors and windows. Fong Su comes with me to the rooftop. The morning light on the rooftop is just beginning to break. Usually, students who get up early at this time go for morning runs on the playground. The cafeteria carries the scent of soy milk, and someone is shouting pens. Someone was screaming, someone was calling for help, and there was a bang-bang. On the third floor of dormitory number 5, a figure poked half his body out of the window, desperately echoing, and then something pulled him back. I couldn't help but curse. More windows lit up, more shadows flickered, but soon those lights went out one by one. Stop looking, the boss pulled me downstairs. We need to check on the fourth brother's condition. Only then did I remember that Lao Si went to the lab last night to debug equipment and still hasn't come back. His phone is off, locating the location, and finally shows in the lab building. We look out the window toward the lab building, which isn't far away. The straight line distance is less than 200 meters, but now that 200 meters might be the distance between life and death. I went to find him. I grabbed the gear I had prepared long ago. Back jacket, cargo pants, and sneakers. The second child got protective gear from the sports equipment room, which also came in handy. Knee pads, elbow pads, and a motorcycle helmet. I'll go with you. Second brother stands up. No, the boss blocks him. Too many people, big target. Fong Su is faster and one person is more mobile. I know he's right. I heard a call called water spray. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. The hallway was quiet. The green light of the emergency light made everything seem unreal. I moved close to the wall, every step careful. The echo came from the stairwell, it was my own breathing. The first, second, and third floors were all normal, too normal, but it was unsettling. Pushing open the fire door of the laboratory building, a grand disinfection water level greeted me, but beneath the disinfection water level was another smell. The smell of blood at the end of the corridor. The lab door was slightly ajar, dark marks on the floor stretching all the way inside. Old 4. I lowered my voice and didn't respond. I pushed open the door, the lab was in utter chaos. Equipment overturned. Design pieces shattered all over the floor. Lao Si's backpack was still on the table. Next to the equipment he was half assembled. Where was the person? A clear sound came from the storage room. I gripped the knife handle and slowly approached. A faint light peeked through the door crack, accompanied by rapid breathing. It was me bleeding. Come in. It was Lao Si's voice. I pushed the door open and went in. Lao Si was curled up in the corner, his face pale. His left arm was bleeding, just a simple bandage. What happened, Professor Chin? He was trembling. Professor Chin was still working overtime last night. I thought it was fine, but he's changed. It's not him anymore. Lao Si's voice is choked with tears. He lunges at me trying to bite me. Eyes all white. Infected. The scene in the video has come true. Can you walk? I'll help Lao Si up. He flashes his gun but stands firm. Wait. He struggles back to the table and grabs the unfinished device. This must be taken. What matters so much? Signal interceptor. He was panting, able to pick up all wireless signals, including military bands. I didn't waste words. I slung his bag over his shoulder and was about to leave the hallway when footsteps sounded. No, it's not footsteps. It's the sound of a break-in, like someone dragging their feet along with heavy breathing. Lao Si and I exchanged a glance. The storage room has only one exit, and the sound of breakup is getting closer. Through the crack in the door, I saw a figure appear at the lab entrance. His white lab coat was covered in blood. His hair was messy, and his walking posture was strangely slanted. It was Professor Chen, or rather, he had once wandered the lab. More things spilled. Suddenly, he stopped, sniffing something in the air, then slowly turned to the storage room. Weapons. I whispered. Old 4 pointed to the shelf, which had several bottles of chemical reagent, sulfuric acid. He said. I carefully removed the bottle, gripped the knife tightly with my other hand, and the doorknob started to spin. 1 second, 2 seconds. The door suddenly flung open. Professor Chun rushed in, letting out an incomprehensible roar. I could see his face clearly. His skin was a sickly gray white, his eyes bloodshot, and some unknown liquid still hanging at the corner of his mouth. I threw the sulfuric acid at him, and the pungent stench instantly filled the cramped space. Professor Chun let out an even more piercing cry, hands facelessly retreating. I dragged Lao Si out of the storage room. Professor Chun rolled on the ground, but quickly got back up. Even though his face was already corroded and ruined, he still staggered after us. We rushed into the stairwell. Old Four's legs were weak. I almost dragged him downstairs. The roaring behind us grew closer, and the doors of the second and first floors were right in front of us. But more figures appeared outside the door, 3 steps, 5 of them. They wandered the open space in front of the building, their movements stiff but not slow. One of them wore a security guard uniform, and the walkie-talkie at his waist was still buzzing. The window was the 4th brother pointing to the side. The first floor window wasn't high. I supported him up. He struggled to crawl out and was about to catch up when the stairwell door slammed open. Professor Chen caught up. The distance was too close. I grabbed a nearby stool and hurled it over. Taking advantage of his flash, I climbed out the window. The infected outside heard the commotion and started heading toward our settlement. Over here was the boss's voice. He and the second brother appeared not far away. Holding it, then a Molotov cocktail arced across the arc. The glass vial shattered beneath the infected's feet. Flames spread instantly. Those things seemed to still retain their instinctive fear of fire. Instinctively retreating, we took advantage of this chance to run toward the astronomical tower. The 200-meter distance had never felt so long. We could hear the sounds of pursuit behind us and feel the danger approaching. The 4th brother's injury slowed us down. I almost carried him for 100 meters, 50 meters. The eldest and second brothers waited at the building entrance, and we rushed in. They immediately closed and locked the door. Bang bang, the infected person crashed into the door. The whole door was shaking, but he held on. We collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. You guys. I looked at the Molotov cocktail left in the boss's hand, prepared last night. He wiped his sweat. Alcohol and dish soap, made on the spot. Lao Si's injury needs treatment. We helped him to the preparation room and used a bit of binding to clean the wound. Luckily, it wasn't deep, it looked more like a scratch than a bite. Virus transmission routes. Lao Si weakly said, "If it really is contact with viral bodily fluids, don't speak. I'll bandage him and let him rest first." Screams outside the window echoed one after another. The entire campus had descended into chaos. The second sun pointed into the distance. Black smoke billowed from the dormitory area. Someone was setting fires, or perhaps it was a fire caused by an out-of-control fire. More figures wandered between the buildings. Some were still wearing pajamas, clearly just infected. Our choice was the right one. The boss whispered, "If we stay in the dorm, I can't imagine it. The phone still has signal, but the network is still ongoing. In the family group, my parents are frantically dumping houses. I'm fine in a safe place. Please don't go out." After sending the message, the signal was cut off. Communication started to cut off. The 4th child lay on a makeshift bed. Next comes electricity, then he didn't finish speaking, but we all understand that social order is collapsing, and this is only the beginning, the end is truly coming. On the 3rd day, we established a fragile order. The astronomy classroom became our refuge. The eldest set a strict schedule. 2 people on duty during the day, 2 people resting, and at night, everyone on alert. Food rations were rationed. Water should be used sparingly, and most importantly, keep quiet. They are sensitive to business. This is the experience we paid the price. Yesterday, someone shouted for help from the dormitory building across the street, which attracted 7 or 8 infected people. That building has now fallen. Lao Si's injuries are improving, but he's focused more on the equipment. He has debugged the signal interceptor, and all kinds of information are pouring in. The East District has fallen. The number of infected people requesting support exceeded expectations. Evacuation plans were launched. Assembly points were intermittently communicated, and the truth outside was exposed. Not only our school, but the entire city was flooded with serum. Suddenly, the 4th brother said, "I intercepted an encrypted message mentioning a serum test. Where is it?" "It's the CDC. They say the preliminary test is effective." The spark of hope is ignited in despair. But the CDC is on the other side of the city. Given the current situation, it's pure fantasy. Survive first, then talk. The boss is very rational, but on the morning of the 5th day, everything changed. I got up as usual and took the pain, but I found the eldest curled up in the corner, trembling all over. The eldest raised his head, his eyes unfocused. I don't feel well." My heart instantly sank to the bottom. When did it start? Maybe earlier last night. We checked his body. There were no obvious bites or scratches, but on his calf, there was a swollen lump that looked just like a mosquito bite. The color of the second man's face changed. The room was deathly silent. We all realized something. The virus doesn't just spread through biting. Mosquitoes, those omnipresent insects, also spread every quarantine. The boss's voice is weak but firm. Locked in the storage room, no. The second one gets excited. This is the only way. The eldest struggles to stand up. I can feel him burning inside me like fire. We have no choice. The storage room was converted into a temporary isolation area. We put food and water at the door, and the boss went in himself, locking the door. He finally said, use iron chains, use everything you can find. The moment it locked up, my hand trembled. The next 12 hours were a struggle. You could hear moans, banging noises, and increasingly inhuman screams coming from inside. Wanted to open the door several times. We stopped them all. He didn't want to become that kind of thing. The fourth brother had red eyes. This was his choice. Suddenly, I remembered the second brother was responsible for night patrols. The rooftop, that overgrown rooftop. It's all my fault. I was hanging by the wall. If only I had cleared the grass earlier. But now it's too late to say anything. Shueching. The second brother spoke intermittently. Go find Shueching. There's still a chance. Lao Si and I locked eyes, heading to the city CDC, passing through the fallen city. How likely was it? Looking at the locked door of the storage room, we knew there was no way out. That night, we began preparations. From the map, the shortest route to the CDC is 15 kilometers. If you hike, considering you need at least 2 days of protection to avoid infections, we used tape to seal all the gaps in our clothes, especially for cuffs and pant legs, weapons. Besides knives, we also prepared several Molotov cocktails, communications, and Lao Si tuned the walkie-talkie to a specific channel. This frequency currently still supports food and water. The most streamlined setup only needs 3 days. Before leaving, I went to see the boss. He rushed toward us waiting, sometimes clear-headed, sometimes blurry. When I returned, I said, at 4 a.m., we're getting ready to set off. Pushing open the door to the astronomical building, outside is a strange world. The once familiar campus has turned into hell, with broken glass everywhere, overturned bicycles, and things unwilling to look closely. In the distance, there are firelights. Nearby, shadowy oil. Remember, I checked my gear one last time. No matter what happens, survival is the top priority. Lao Si nodded and pushed his leg, those iconic eyes. Then the three of us stepped into the darkness of doomsday. For our brothers. For that sliver of hope. Even though we knew this might be a road of no return, the darkness before dawn was the hardest to endure. We pressed forward along the shadows of the buildings. Every step was a tight walk. Lao Si was ahead using his phone to navigate, while I kept watch from behind. The school's south gate was the nearest exit, but also the most dangerous. It used to be the busiest place. Lao Si suddenly crouched down. In the small square ahead, a dozen infected people wandered around. Under the moonlight, their twisted figures and unnatural movements were clearly visible. Some were still wearing school uniforms, clearly students who had just been infected yesterday. Detour. The second child decisively pulled us back, choosing a longer but relatively safer route. Passing through the teaching building, bypassing the library, and avoiding every familiar spot. Everything was completely changed. The library's glass door shattered all over the floor, and it was pitch black inside. As I passed by, I caught a glimpse of something moving between the shelves. Don't be fooled, keep walking. Finally, I reached the edge of the wall where there was an old side door. Usually locked, but my second brother had already studied the lock structure. Give me 3 minutes, he pulled out a tool and started picking the lock. I turned my back to him and stared at the source. 1 minute, 2 minutes, click, done. Pushing open the door, the real city lay outside. If the school still had traces of order, then outside it was complete chaos, with cars parked in all directions on the streets. Some car doors were wide open, some crashed into each other, streetlights flickered on and off. Guerrilla stations were completely extinguished. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of decay. Wearing masks could at least filter out some of it. Following the planned route, the once bustling commercial street now feels like a ghost town. Most of the shop's rolling shutters have been pried open. Inside is a mess. Someone has been here. Lao Si points to the traces on the ground. Not long ago, we survived, which made us both comforted and alert. After walking about 2 kilometers, the sky began to lighten. At this point, we had to find a place to rest. Traveling during the day was too dangerous. The infected seemed to have better vision under the light. I pointed to an office building, and an office on the 3rd floor became a temporary stop. The door lock was fairly solid, the windows were intact, and we took turns resting. At the same time, observing the street conditions, the daytime scene was even more shocking. The number of infected people was greater than expected. They wandered aimlessly, occasionally gathering together and then dispersing, some still retaining habits from their previous lives. I saw an infected person in a suit still waiting for the bus, even though the bus stop had already been knocked down. Look over there. Lao Si handed me a binoculars. A few blocks away, a small group of people was moving quickly, fully equipped. Movements are orderly, clearly organized. Official people, unlike Lao Si shaking his head. The equipment is too scattered. Survivor group. Looks like we're not the only ones thinking about finding Shueching. At noon, the walkie-talkie suddenly rang. Is anyone there? Here it is. Please answer. The signal is weak, intermittent. Do you want to respond? Lao Si looks at me. I hesitate. Exposing the position is risky. But this is Fong Su. I press the call button. Who are you? Survivors are trapped. The museum needs help. The museum isn't far from here, but not on our route. How many people? Twos, a couple, and children. When talking about children, the voices on the other end clearly choked up. I'll turn off the walkie-talkie and check on Lao Air and Lao Si. No, I'm not going. Lao Air is very decisive. We have our own tasks. He's right, but the despair in that voice made Lao Zi nod and keep moving forward. I finally said at 4 p.m. we set out again, bypassing 2 clusters of infected people and passing through a residential area. The progress was slower than expected, and continuing like this could take 3 days to reach the CDC. Can the boss hold out that long? 2 days passed and we had only walked 5 kilometers. The sunlight made the asphalt soften, leaving faint marks when stepping on the soles. The burn made my toes shrink. I stared at my own shadow. After watching for 2 seconds, I realized that in summer, when it snowed, the shadows were just as long. Back then, there were crowds of noisy classmates crowded around me. Now, only the footsteps of the 4th and 2nd brothers remain, knocking on the empty road, while zombies sway in the shadows of distant buildings. I didn't dare look too long, but couldn't help glancing at their rotting skin glistening with oil in the sunlight, like spoiled cured meat. Their movements were half as slow as at night, yet they still wound up like puppets, moving tirelessly. How strange. Even though it's already so rotten, the joints can still bend, still walking. How much longer? Old Four's voice was hoarse, like sandpaper grinding wood. I turned to look at the bandage on his left arm. The dark character marks were already sharpened and half-grown, cut by the old man during a sneak attack. Scenes from last night's convenience store flashed through his mind. The old man curled up behind the shelves, his back so full it was like a shrimp. When we handed him half a bottle of water, his fingers trembled like leaves in the autumn wind. Who would have thought that the moment Fourth placed the compressed biscuits in front of him, he would suddenly grab a broken beer bottle and lunge at him. The sound of glass scraping flesh was very soft, like tearing open a plastic package, but the marks didn't seem like they were trying to grab food, just a simple attempt to take a fall. Almost at the overpass, I tried to keep my voice steady and my gaze passed over Lao Si's shoulder. Landing on the 2nd brother, he stared at the roadside. An overturned ice cream truck was staring blankly. The melted cream mixed with black mud inside the front looked like a solidified wutu. Just then, a dense roar suddenly came from the alley. Not just 1 or 2 but a group. My scalp instantly exploded. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a dark shadow emerging from the corner. Their arms and legs twisted at strange angles, and they let out a hissing sound from their throats. Like a runaway bellows, I almost shouted, grabbing Lao Si's arm and charging forward. He made a splash. The wound must have hurt a lot, but I didn't dare listen. The roar behind me grew closer. You could hear the 2nd child's footsteps following closely. He always kept his feet on his feet, as if afraid others wouldn't know he had arrived. He didn't know how long he'd been running, until his lungs felt like a fire had bursting into his lungs, and he turned into a narrow alley to hide. Relying on the cold, forceful breathing, I realized only the 4th brother was left by my side. The 2nd was gone. The wind at the alley entrance carried the scent of bones in. I stared at the empty end of the alley, my heart gripping like a hand. How could I not keep up? When I turned around just now, I clearly saw him right behind me. Was it tripping or just not daring to think about going down? The 4th brother was leaning against the wall and coughing. Every cough felt like coughing out his lungs. Suddenly, I remembered the day the eldest was locked in the storage room. He coughed the same way. The abandoned bank ATM had become a temporary shelter. The metal door was locked from the inside. I pulled out a military knife and cut open the bandages on Lao Si. The edge of the wound was already blackened. I can't handle it. He panted and laughed, his laughter full of despair. Forget about me, go find Shueching or shut up. I slapped him, his voice pounding back and forth in the cramped space, making my ears hurt. Actually, I regretted it right after the fight. He was already upset, but I couldn't control myself. If he kept talking, I'm afraid I'd collapse too. We came out for the 2nd brother, for the eldest. I stared into his eyes. Try to keep your tone firm. We're only halfway there, and you're lying flat. I pointed at his wound, my fingertips trembling. Even if you've changed, if you find Shueching, you can still save him. He was stunned, and a glimmer slowly appeared in his eyes. Like a candle about to go out, the wind has lit it up again. I tore open the corner of my own shirt and rebandaged him. Unexpectedly, when I brushed against his skin, I felt a burning heat deep down, and my heart sank bit by bit. I had a fever. This is even worse than a blackened wound. We didn't even have any fever medicine. After bandaging, I leaned against the cold cabinet machine, staring blankly at the sunlight outside. I used to think summer was too long, but now I wish the sun wouldn't set so quickly. When night falls, those things should come alive. Lao Si leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, breathing heavily, and was about 100 meters closer to the safe zone. Maybe even closer to the second place. I gripped my saber tightly, the handle soaked with sweat from my palm. Let's go, can't stop. If we stop, we're really finished. The further north we go, the more zombies there are. There's no choice, we have to find a place to hide. Supporting Lao Si, he moved inside. The soles of his shoes scraped the paper on the ground, making a crisp rustling sound. Normally, he wouldn't pay attention to such sounds, but now he wanted to squeeze sandpaper and scrape his eardrums, afraid of disturbing something with every stroke. Is anyone there? I shouted in a low voice. The echo crashed into the empty lobby, making it stand out of place. Suddenly, the back of the front desk moved, and a shadow of the whole car tensed up. It was a girl, hugging her knees and curling up under the counter. On the exposed half of her calf, dried mud stains were on her fingers. Her fingers twisted the edge of her off-white shirt. The fabric looked quite refined. The official badge on her chest swayed, and the plastic case was printed with "Fixed Dye Administrative Assistant." In the photo, she wore a low ponytail, and when she smiled, there was a shallow dimple at the corner of her mouth. Don't call her, her voice trembled. Her eyes quickly swept over me and Lao Si. When she landed on her bleeding bandage, her pupils contracted. You guys aren't those things. I didn't answer. I pointed to Lao Si's arm. Is there a pharmacy near Lao Si's arm? She had a severe fever. She pursed her lips and glanced out the glass door, diagonally opposite a Huimin pharmacy, open 24 hours. But yesterday afternoon, I saw 3 of them stuck at the cashier, completely motionless. She paused, then suddenly shifted to the side, revealing a safety exit sign behind her. Go down the fire ladder, pass through the back alley, and you can loop around to the pharmacy's back door. The lock on that door had long since rusted and opened with a single kick. I stared at her for 2 seconds. This building had been surrounded for at least 3 days. She survived until now either by incredible luck or by being cleverer than she appeared. Why aren't you leaving? I'm waiting for news. She lowered her head and touched her badge, her fingertips rubbing against the dimple in the photo. The boss said he'd send a car to pick her up. Her voice grew quieter and quieter, finally turning into a barely audible sigh. At this moment, I don't know if she's blessed by heaven or if she's just naive and lucky. At a time like this, she still trusts the boss. Enough talk. Let's hurry up and go. I dragged Lao Si past her. She pondered for a moment, nodded, and hurried ahead to lead the way. Following her, the embroidered strap of the Fire T10 iron armrest rubbed against her palm, tickling and lecherous. Lao Si's breathing grew heavier and heavier. She almost had to rest her entire weight on my shoulders. I could feel her skin burning as if she had a branding iron. She couldn't find any fever reducers or wait for the wound to worsen. The high fever would drag her down first. Of course, she walked ahead, her steps light. Yet she always managed to avoid the loose steps before stepping down. When passing the second-floor platform, she suddenly stopped and pointed out the window. It was my rented apartment. The 6th floor across the street had a solitary lamp lit and the curtains were not drawn tightly. I could see the crooked sofa inside. The light was on the night before last, but it went out yesterday. Her voice was very soft, probably because she couldn't get through it. I didn't respond. At times like this, any comfort seems unnecessary. On the evening of the 3rd day, we rested at a maternity and baby shop. Lao Si had already started talking nonsense, hugging a plush bear and muttering to himself, saying it was Lao Li's box of serum. He had measured her temperature using the store's temperature. My hand shaking the thermometer was shaking at 39 degrees. If this continued, I'd get a stroke. The sky outside the window gradually darkened, and the zombies' howls grew closer. I looked across the street at the pharmacy with a 24-hour lightbox. The red light from the lightbox streamed through the glass, casting a flickering patch of light on the ground. I went to distract them. Suddenly, I said, "Of course, if you suddenly look up, you're crazy." At least you have some charm outside, and there's no other way. I interrupted him, my gaze falling on the shared bike at the street corner lying in a green flour bag. The handlebars were still crookedly pointing toward the pharmacy. You take him through the back alley, and I led them to the building materials market on the east side. There are many alleys over there. It's easy to shake off. He wanted to say something else, but I had already grabbed that military coat and put it on. The heavy canvas brushed against my neck, carrying a hint of Zhang Brain's scent. This was a demonstration we had prepared from prison storage. At first, it just felt like a burden, but now it's become a lifesaver. See that red water tower? I pointed to the distant skyline. The sun was sinking behind the tower. An hour later, no matter who hadn't arrived, everyone was waiting there for 3 hours. The moment I mounted the bike, the rust on the seat rubbed against my pants, leaving a dark red mark. I took a deep breath and pressed the bike bell. The crisp sound was like a pebble thrown into stagnant water. At the pharmacy across the street, those zombies that had been about to profit suddenly moved, slowly turning their heads. I pedaled out and rushed out. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that although I had helped the fourth brother slip into the alley entrance, that weight hung in my heart. Halfway through, the wind rushed into the collar of the freshman army, and the thick birdcatcher pressed him into his arms. His back was quickly soaked. The zombies followed behind, their footsteps dragging like a wet rag, yet tireless. Passing the gravel intersection, I suddenly slammed on the brakes. The road was blocked. The wreckage of more than a dozen cars piled up into a small mountain. The top bus was half hanging outside the cargo shed, and inside the window were zombies in only suits. It was mechanically hitting the glass, making a dull thud. I could only crawl. I hoisted my bike and climbed onto the pile of trucks. The hem of my military freshman was hooked on the truck's rearview mirror, and with a sudden tug, I almost dragged me off. Looking down, he saw a zombie crawling up the truck tires. Fran's fingers were digging at the gaps between the wheel hubs, dried black mud embedded in his nails. His heart suddenly pounded wildly, as if it might shatter his ribs. I climbed up using both hands and feet. The bike's metal frame was resting on my waist, the pain tingling my bones. By the time I reached the top, the zombie was almost hooked onto my heel. Fran's mouth opened and closed, revealing his dark yellow teeth. Get lost. I kicked her right in the chest. She fell like a broken sack, crashing onto the car roof with a dull thud. As she passed through the pile of cars, her leg was cut open by broken glass. The wind rushed in, tingling with pain. I glanced back and saw half of the zombies following behind had already been cut off. A few were stuck in the gaps of the car, twisting in vain, but the one at the front was still chasing. One of her legs was already broken, but he crawled on his knees, moving even faster than he was walking. By the time he reached the water tower, it was completely dark. Most of the streetlights were broken, and only the distant billboard was still flickering, stretching my shadow in a fluctuating length, like a steamer inside my military coat. Sweat streaming down my forehead into my eyes. The person of color couldn't keep my eyes open. I gritted my teeth and pushed forward, but suddenly the car chain clicked off. My legs went weak as I got out. I almost fell to my knees, holding onto the handlebars and gasping for breath. I heard footsteps dragging behind me. The zombie with the broken leg was still trailing, just over 10 meters away from me. I dropped my bike and staggered toward the water tower. With every step, the military coat was like a thread of dust. As he neared the bottom of the water tower, he saw two shadows standing in the shadows. It was Gu Ran, Lao Si, and Nick. Just as Gu Ran's voice rang out, it suddenly turned into a short cry of surprise. Following his gaze, I turned around. The zombie with the broken leg had already crawled less than 5 meters away from me, its rotting eyes fixed on me. At the same time, roars came from the surrounding alleys, getting closer and closer, as if surging in from all directions. Turns out they weren't drawn away by me, but by me. Just as this thought crossed my mind, my vision suddenly went black. The weight of my military coat weighed down on me, making it hard to breathe. My ears buzzed. I wanted to shout, even though I wanted to take the fourth brother, but I ran fast but couldn't make a sound. At the moment I finally collapsed, I saw the fourth brother rushing over to help me. The fourth brother struggled to stand up, but their faces grew increasingly blurred. Only the zombie with the broken leg was still crawling over step by step. It's over. That was my last thought before losing consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I smelled was the scent of Jianfu, a slightly irritating scent that filled my nose. This cleared Hun Dun's mind a bit. The fourth brother sat across from me, his bandages replaced with clean white. Although his face was still pale, his eyes were much clearer. When he saw I was awake, a trace of relief flashed in his eyes. As soon as I started speaking, I realized something was wrong. My wrists were tied behind me with thick hemp rope, the rough rope digging into my flesh. The pain made me gasp sharply. My heart sank instantly, and I woke up with a hoarse voice. 3 men stood in the corner, led by a jaw-dropper and playing with a paralysis knife. I scanned the backpacks at their feet. All our supplies had been dug out. These guys are really careful. Luo Jihu's gaze wandered over Guru, as if he were scrutinizing a livestock. That sticky look made my stomach churn. Who are you? I pretended to be relaxed, but my mind was racing to calculate. Forcing a fight won't work. The 3 of us are like meat on the cutting board right now. I've set my sights on that little girl for you, but she won't live long anyway. Lowering her cheeks, she raised an eyebrow. Oh, her tone full of doubt. If you don't believe me, look. I'll go to Guren in the audience. He was just grabbed by zombies. Although it wasn't broken, Baobuchi got infected. And that guy who turned to Lao Si. That kid is starting to talk nonsense now. I guess he'll change in the middle of the night. Guran was covered in a mess. I was sweating nervously, afraid he'd give himself away, but the next second he lowered his head, his shoulders trembling slightly. That fear of exposure was just like that. The 4th brother started coughing in agreement, coughing so hard it was heartbreaking. He cursed at the cheek pot and kicked my leg. Not too hard, so much that I bit into my mouth and dragged him to the edge of the pit. I just needed bait. When they helped me up, I deliberately struggled a few times, but inside I was trying to lure the zombies with a drum. Looks like they want to use me to lure zombies. This trick is pretty sneaky, but that's fine too. In the dim light, a chilling cold radiated as I sat against the wall and started sharpening the rope. The rough wall scraped against the hemp rope and my wrist, burning painfully. I knew clearly this group wasn't good at it and had no intention of leaving survivors. I had to find a way to escape quickly, or I'd really become a typical zombie. Time passed bit by bit, and my wrist was tightly gripped by the rope, numb and painful, but I didn't dare stop. Every time I rubbed against it, I got a little closer to freedom. Occasionally, a few unknown sounds came from outside the warehouse, making my heart leap into my throat as I feared they might suddenly come in. At midnight, the rope finally broke. In my freshman year, I almost cried tears of joy and stretched my stiff wrist. I pinched my hands and feet as I reached for the warehouse door. As soon as my fingers touched the cold door, I heard footsteps outside. Oh no! Just as I pulled my hand back, the warehouse door was pushed open. The burly man outside blocked the doorway. The bright light made it impossible for me to keep my eyes open. He was stunned for a moment, but quickly reached for the knife at his waist with his other hand. That move made my adrenaline surge. Oh no, I probably can't dodge now. I clenched my fist, ready to fight to the death. With a muffled thud, the burly man suddenly collapsed to the ground, blood lying on the back of his head. I was stunned. Looking in the direction he fell, a man stepped out from behind him. The 2nd brother was clutching a blood-stained brick inside the second-hand man. His eyes showed a hint of panic. Let's go first. What's going on? Later, when we returned to our previous spot, we saw from afar Gu Ran and Lao Si curled up behind the shelves, each holding a steel pipe, looking alert. Seeing us, they visibly breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did the 2nd brother explain what had happened to him during this time. It turned out that after being scattered by the tide of the tide, he accidentally ran into this group. To survive, he had to pretend to defect. After knowing that yesterday these people targeted us, he knew they wouldn't let us go, so he kept waiting for a chance to save us. I felt a wave of emotion in my heart. Adversity reveals true feelings. We can't stay here for long. We had to hurry up. We crouched and moved toward the back door of the warehouse. The shoe soles grind against the shattered glass, crisp armor, echoing in the silent night. A few dim lights shone through the shelves above, just enough to illuminate the one on the side of the 2nd child's waist. After mixing in fertilizer bags, he mixed in with the group and made some homemade explosives with hidden stone and charcoal. They seemed to have no. Just as his words faltered, a loud bang came from behind him as a metal tube fell to the ground. Then came a rough curse. Fuck, what are you hiding? The hairs on my back instantly stood on end. I turned around and saw Loris Lake charging over with a steel pipe, splitting up and running. The 2nd brother suddenly shouted in a low voice. I suddenly pushed over the nearby iron rack, which collapsed with the empty oil drum on top, stuck right in the narrow aisle. Loser Lake cursed and crashed over, tripping over the barrel until it lit up. I took the chance to grab Lao Si and run toward the forklift on the side. That was the key from the piece I had just come in, still stuck there. Quick, I turned the car key. The forklift started creaking. Exhaust made me cough. Thin Gao Gu had already moved around the shelf, and the kitchen knife was as gray as a windmill. The 2nd brother grabbed a nearby crowbar and swung it at him, striking his wrist. The kitchen knife fell like a wolf, damn it. Lost Lake, eyes red, lunged at the second brother. The steel pipe struck down with the wind as he dodged to the side. The steel pipe smashed onto the concrete floor, sparks appearing all over my face. I drove the forklift toward the back door. The truck bed smashed open the half-open iron door, and with a thud, it slumped against the door frame. The fourth brother suddenly grabbed my arm, leaving the left side empty. I turned and saw 3 zombies. Drawn by the warehouse noise, I fanned myself and gathered around. One of them was wearing a tattered delivery uniform, making a loud sound in his throat, dripping down his chin. Sitting steadily, I turned the steering wheel hard, and the forklift crashed into me with momentum. The truck bed was pressed against the delivery jacket zombie's chest. The thing was pushed back a few steps, but its claws clung tightly to the edge of the truck. The rotting nails scraped the metal pieces everywhere. Old 4 grabbed the fire extinguisher nearby. It slammed hard onto his head, foam mixed with black blood, splattering all over the truck. Whether it exploded or not, the second brother had already caught up, still clutching the bundle of explosives. Luo Ji Hu and the remaining 2 accomplices were chasing around the shelves, the steel pipe dragging on the ground with a piercing sound. I glanced at the zombies getting closer, then at the narrow alley behind the door. If they blocked the entrance, we'd be like iron in a jar. Gritting my teeth, I pushed the forklift forward to clear a gap for the zombies. The second brother tore off the fuse and threw it hard into the warehouse, dragging us into the alley to cry. When the deafening explosion at the entrance of the alley blew off, the warehouse roof was blown off. The heat waves wrapped around broken bricks hit our backs, making it hard to breathe. I dragged them toward the rooftop. The zombies in the alley were frantically startled by the explosion. 2 had already blocked the stairwell. One of them had a broken leg and was crawling on the ground with its fingernails, its nails digging into the concrete. Quickly drop the debris. The second brother picked up the steel pipe from the ground and, as he looked up, slammed it into his mouth. Black snow sprayed all over his pant leg. We stumbled up to the rooftop and slammed the iron door with a backhand. The second brother pulled out an iron chain. After rapping it twice, the lock clicked. The moment it clicked, I heard the sound of zombies banging on the door downstairs. I helped Lao Si lean against the water tank. His forehead was burning fiercely, but suddenly he grabbed my wrist. I looked down. Only then did he realize the lower shaft of the iron gate had been loosened by the impact. Suddenly, he pointed to the corner of the wall. There was rebar there, made from leftover scrap steel from renovation, varying in length with sharp fractures. The second one grabbed the longest one. The moment the steel bar was stuck under the door hinge, the force of the slam seemed a bit lighter. Also, pointing at the brick pile on the rooftop, which was left over from previous renovations, Lao Air and I quickly moved bricks to stack behind the door. The pile of bricks gradually rose, and the vibration of the door finally faded a bit. But the zombies' howls grew closer, as if they were pressed against the other side of the door, their breath spraying on the metal plate, carrying the stench of rotting flesh. They came up too. I poked my head out and saw the group from Luojihu climbing the stairs. Shou Gao was holding a fire axe, clearly avoiding the explosion zone. 2 zombies followed behind them. They probably caught up to me. Well, now we're blocked both front and rear. I grabbed a brick and threw it down, landing right on Shou Gao's back. He cursed and turned around, swinging the fire axe with a whooshing sound. Otherwise, he picked up the broken bricks and threw them at Luoji's head. But they hit the stair railing, breaking into several pieces. Lao Si leaned against the water tank, panting heavily, saying, "First, the asbestos tile next to it." On the north side of the rooftop were some old asbestos tiles, leftovers from the previous canopy. My second brother and I took a look, then suddenly lifted 2 pieces and retreated toward the stairwell. The asbestos tiles clattered down and landed right at the foot of the lake. One of the spikes grazed his arm, and blood gushed out instantly. He cursed and retreated, temporarily blocked, but the zombies downstairs crashed even harder. The team behind the door was already half collapsed. The metal door was dented into a big pit, and I could see the zombies' rotting fingers outside. I grabbed the steel bar, feeling a bit of strength. If they really broke in, we wouldn't even have a chance to resist. Just then, Lao Air suddenly grabbed me, pointing at the western sky. "What is that?" I squinted and saw a small black dot moving this way. Accompanied by a growing scar, it was a helicopter. At this point, where did this helicopter come from? But the sound grew clearer and clearer. It even drowned out the zombies' roars and the curses of the lame lake. It was a suspenseful slicing sound through the air. No doubt about it. First, deal with these scum. Suddenly, the second brother raised the steel bar and rushed toward the stairway, just as the laundry lake climbed up. The fire department came crashing down on me. The second brother raised a steel bar to block it. With a bang, it made his arm go numb. I rushed over too, and suddenly several gunshots rang out downstairs. Crunchy, like bitten into an ice stub. I was stunned for a moment and saw a zombie clutching the iron door collapse, its head bursting with a snowflake. Immediately, more gunfire came from different directions. At the stairwell, the tall, skinny zombie suddenly had its head split. The tall one collapsed to the ground in fear, was pulled up by Luojuhu, and tried to run, but was hit by another bullet in the crook of the leg, collapsing to its knees. It was the army. Old 4, at some point, stood up holding onto the water tank. Dust was on his eyes, but they shone astonishingly. I looked up and saw the dark green helicopter hovering above the rooftop. The national emblem on the fuselage gleamed in the sunlight. The hatch opened, the machine gun barrel protruded. The train licked the air, precisely sweeping toward the zombies downstairs. Those things that had just been ramming the door. Instantly torn to pieces, the wind swept down from the helicopter's propellers, blowing so hard it was impossible to keep your eyes open. Your brain boiling with steel bars and gasping, arms still shaking, eyes stained with blood and ash. Yet you grinned widely, suddenly leaning against the water tank. Clutching my chest, tears fell onto the back of Lao Si's hand. I watched the soldiers clean up the scene and suddenly felt all my strength drained. As I was pulled onto the helicopter, I glanced back at the rooftop. Turning to face him, by the door, the steel bars were crookedly stuck on the ground. Sunlight filtered through the smoke and bullets, shining down on the blood-stained concrete floor. Below his head, flickering lights flickered. In the distance, the warehouse was still smoking, like a nearly burned cigarette. So living can really be this secure. A year later, I sat in the library with thick professional books in front of me. Final exams were coming again. This time it was a real exam. No tests, no apocalypse. Phone vibrators were group messages. Boss, basketball teams are used to hiding. Number 2, awesome. Celebrate tonight. Congratulations to 4th. I have plans with Euron tonight, so I won't go. Oh my, you guys have appointments every day. Daily banter feels really good. The library's broadcast is detailed. Today is National Epidemic Prevention Day. Let us remember the deceased and thank those heroes who stepped forward in times of crisis. The minister and I look out the window at the playground. Students running and playing ball are also normal, but everyone knows that this normalcy is hard-won. The hardships have cost us a lot, but they have also taught us to prepare for the worst. Learn to cherish the present, and most importantly, learn to believe that even in the darkest moments, dawn will come, because we are human, because we have wisdom, courage, and love, because even if the world collapses, and brothers fighting side by side. My phone rings again. Mom wants to eat something tonight. I'll make it for you, I'm fine. Mom's cooking is always delicious. Mom just knows how to cheer me up. Then make your favorite braised pork. I smiled. It's good to be alive, to have family, to have brothers, to have brothers, to have brothers. The end of the world is finally over, and our story is only just beginning.